free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine! Occupation is a crime! Free, free Palestine! Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Israel's one word! AIPAC!
And they were shot at and killed several Palestinians trying to enter feature ray in their area. Or like, the thing when
Can I call you for one more picture? Someone sends my girlfriend in Iran,
but
and I want to make sure I get
in like man shooting a woman or something like that, right? There, it's like 10 times as much. Like I said, the kill rate for a Palestinian, if they're charged with anything, is like 0.3%. Like, how can that be just when they just come up with, you know, like, most of the charges that get made here against somebody, you know, a lot of it's bullshit.
So much money in politics.
How you doing? Good. I'm gathering you came up from Eugene for this event.
I did, yes.
Yeah. Why don't you tell me a little bit about what's going on or what brings you up here? What motivates you to come out on this?
Well, a number of things. I'm the co-director of the Al-Nakba Awareness Project, which is trying to educate Americans about the truth in the Israel occupation, 60-year occupation of Palestine, dispossession of some 4 million refugees now that are registered with the United Nations, refusal to return their land to them in contradiction of international law. Articles 13 and 17 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights say that anybody has the right to go back to their country and say that no one can be deprived of their property. Israel agreed to do that as a condition of its admission to the United Nations in 1949 and has never fulfilled that pledge. And it was interesting, I just attended a film last night that was sponsored by an Asian association in Eugene, looking at the internment of Japanese during World War II. And I asked them to imagine that internment had never ended, that the Japanese were still interned 6 decades, 3 generations out, still unable to return to their homes, homes given to white Americans, and not even any compensation ever given them. And that is what the situation in Palestine is. And it was not just 1948, it's been going on ever since. Since 1967, there have been almost 30,000 Palestinian homes bulldozed by Israel.
30,000?
30,000, yeah. And according to the Israeli Committee on House Demolitions, it goes in and tries to rebuild them and tries to block the demolitions in the first place in collaboration with Palestinian NGOs, And then in '67, Israel grabbed the rest in a falsified preemptive war. They claimed they were under threat, and they were not. And the Israeli generals at that time admitted it. Hey, these people weren't preparing to attack us. Nasser was at least a year away from even the capacity to attack us, but they wanted to grab them while they could. And even Menachem Begin admitted it 15 years later, 1982, in a speech to the U.S. War College. He said, well, we really have to be honest. We decided to attack him, meaning Nasser. So it's been one whole 60-year fabric of lies, deceptions, where the true story has been almost precisely reversed, where the victims are made into the criminals. Obviously, the Palestinians under occupation have the right to resist under international law. They have the right to armed resistance, although it's inadvisable when you're going up against F-16s and helicopter gunships and all that. But they do have the right to armed resistance. And of course, they're being denounced as terrorists, you see, just the way, and it's become the excuse for the United States, invading much of Central Asia in search of resource control and geopolitical control. The same thing we did in South America during Operation Condor, again for political control and resource extraction. or the CIA and our appointed dictators, accounted for the outright murder of about 50,000 people, another 30,000 desaparecidos that were dumped in the ocean, disappeared and never to be seen again, and over 400,000 that were incarcerated as political prisoners, and that all began under Nixon, Kissinger, and went on for 20 years. And then, anyways, it goes on and on and on. It's just incredible imperial greed in the service of multinational corporations and Israel. And the economic power of these people is enormous. I mean, the Israel lobby basically controls Congress through campaign finance control.
And that's what this dinner is about.
That's what this dinner. AIPAC is the main hood ornament, the main figurehead organization out of 52 major American Jewish organizations, all of whom support Israel in lockstep, and have arranged to infiltrate the U.S. government. They have infiltrated the media so that we get no truth in media in the United States, in the mainstream media, unlike the rest of the world. The rest of the world knows the truth. Israel's only concerned about controlling America because we have the veto in the Security Council. And we have vetoed 43 resolutions, Security Council resolutions, that would have disciplined Israel. And what's interesting, each time we were the only country in the world on the Security Council. So you got 4 other permanent members, 10 other rotating members from all over the world. Not one of them on any of those 43 occasions has ever voted in favor of Israel.
Except for the United States?
Only the United States. And that's all Israel cares about, because we have the veto.
Boy, there's no accountability for what the U.S. is doing here.
There's no accountability, but we are controlled not because our elected people really believe in Israel. There's a handful that do, like Schumer and Lieberman and so forth, but most of them are simply controlled by campaign finance. Anytime a senator, particularly a senator, they try to control the Senate because there's fewer elections. There's only a third of the Senate that are up for election in any given cycle. And if any senator steps out of line by not supporting Israel or telling the truth about Israel, their opponent will be massively funded in the upcoming campaign. And it's the kiss of death politically. They got rid of William Fulbright, Senator Fulbright, distinguished Rhodes Scholar, former Rhodes Scholar, chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, when he tried to force AIPAC to register as a foreign agent. They got rid of him. They got rid of Senator Charles Percy of Illinois. They got rid of Senator James Aberitz of South Dakota. They got rid of Paul Finley, congressman from Illinois. They got rid of Cynthia McKinney, a very distinguished congresswoman from Atlanta, who actually was our Green Party presidential candidate in the last election. She's always told the truth about Israel. They got rid of her.
By bringing in big dollars to fund the opposition,
right,
and run them right out of the arena, more or less, their voice.
And now AIPAC cannot give the money directly because they represent a foreign government.
Wow.
But what they do is they serve as an agent to funnel funds from private individuals.
They introduce
every election cycle, the wealthy Zionists in America, like Sheldon Adelman in Las Vegas and others back in New York, they contact AIPAC and they say, who do we need to get rid of on this election cycle? Where should we put our dollars? And so they're given usually a fairly small list of people to go after. And this is why, in the Goldstone report was repudiated by the House of Representatives by this overwhelming margin, like 336 to 35 or something. Remember, the Goldstone report, which is rock solid evidence of massive war crimes committed by Israel, prima facie evidence during Operation Cast Lead, where they killed 1,400 people. Just bombing the hell out of innocent, helpless people in Gaza, trapped.
So if a person searched on Google for the words what was it?
Goldstone.
Goldstone?
Goldstone report, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
For people who don't know much about it, because I don't know a whole lot about it.
Oh, really?
So
Well, that was Judge Richard Goldstone. He's Jewish, a very distinguished international Jewish jurist from South Africa. He was appointed by the United Nations to investigate possible war crimes in Operation Cast Lead in 2008-09. And they came back with a very thick report. You know, it's like a half-inch thick, and it very specifically identifies and describes, I think, a dozen different categories of war crimes committed by Israel. And they thought that he would be kind of bulletproof from the lobby because he's Jewish, he's distinguished, and so forth. Of course, the lobby just went after him and hammered him. And in South Africa, they tried to block him from even returning to South Africa for his grandson's bar mitzvah.
Wow.
And he finally recanted in one item. He said, well, one of the things they accused Israel of is deliberately targeting civilians. He said, well, we didn't really have all the evidence then, and maybe we couldn't quite prove that one. Well, he didn't recant the other 11, and didn't even recant that one, really. He just said, well, the evidence is probably inconclusive about that. We can't really prove they delivered. But their own troops have said they did. They said it's Israeli policy, and it has been for a long time. Israel uses specific terrorist strategies to terrorize an entire population, so they will not support any warriors in their midst. They won't even support nonviolent resistance overtly, because they will be the entire population will be deliberately targeted by Israeli missiles, gunships, F-16s, remotely operated drones, tanks, D9 bulldozers that come in to destroy properties. I mean, and most of which is funded by the United States. So we, as U.S. taxpayers, have a distinct responsibility to stand up and demand that our government stop doing this. And the other thing we need to do, since the United States has been so intractable due to the power of the lobby, international civil societies developed the BDS, Boycott, Divestment, and Sanction Movement, which is it's a civil society movement that bypasses the recalcitrant controlled governments. That's why you see all these BDS signs here.
Yeah, one right behind you too.
Yeah,
I'm looking at.
and so if anybody viewing wants to get involved in this, I recommend it highly. The divestment campaign is going strong. It's very powerful. The entire country of Norway has divested from Israeli companies. Go to a website called whoprofits.org that has a list of all the companies that profit from the Israeli occupation. There's another website called bdsmovement.net that explains the BDS movement. A third one is PACBI, the PACBI.org. That's the Palestinian Academic and Cultural Boycott of Israel. And this is hurting them badly too, because Israeli academics are boycotted in England, for example. They're not invited to conferences because all the Israeli universities profit from the occupation, without exception. They all have contracts with the IDF and so forth. There's no institution in the state of Israel that is innocent. They're all economically profiting from the occupation. They're all involved in it, all the universities and so forth. So one of the PACBI methods is to encourage major name performers not to perform in Israel. A number of them have canceled engagements in Israel. They say we will not grant any appearance of normalcy to an apartheid and occupying state that is violating the human rights of other people. Israeli performers should not be invited here, and our major performers should not be performing there. I wish they'd go to Palestine and perform. You know, I would love to see some great blues performers go into Ramallah and write some great blues songs for the Palestinians, you know?
Yeah.
and completely bypass Israel. Just walk right through there and say, sorry, we don't perform here. We don't perform for you people. We don't want anything to do with you.
People allowed to kind of go into that country easily, though? I mean, it sounded good what you said, but
it's not easy, but it can be done.
It can be done, yeah.
Global Exchange is an organization that conducts tours there, where you can go into the West Bank. I know a number of people who go to Gaza or do humanitarian work, so it's possible to go. You might have to endure some humiliations at the Ben Gurion airport. I have a Palestinian friend who goes back and is strip searched naked, you know, including women, including children. That's what That's what they do to humiliate people, to encourage them to never go back. Palestinians that go there, American Palestinians with American passports, are treated as Palestinians rather than Americans. They have a special stamp on their passport, and they have to go through all the checkpoints and all this stuff that all the Palestinians have to go through. If you're an American that's not a Palestinian, you can drive right through. So it's a systematic campaign of degradation, humiliation, and sadistic, really sadistic treatment.
It needs to be exposed and stopped.
That's right.
You know,
and it's up to us as American citizens, because we're not going to get the government to do it without that grassroots pressure from below. You know, I'm the national vice chair of the Veterans for Peace working group on Palestine. One of the things we're doing, we're sending out the names of all the representatives who voted against the Goldstone Report, and all the ones who take junkets to Israel, you see, and all the ones who receive large amounts of AIPAC funding, and we're distributing that all over the country so that our individual members in Veterans for Peace chapters all over the country can start holding people's feet to the fire, the way Joe Walsh does here in Portland. It doesn't take that many. Just a handful of people going out like Joe does with Jay Bybee, the torture judge. He's out there harassing every day. Every day Bybee's in town, you know.
Making it be publicly known.
That's right.
Exposing it. And encouraging and holding them accountable.
Holding their feet to the fire and embarrassing them in public. Every time they step out of their office and have to walk to their car, they're confronted with signs and with people who are saying unfriendly things, you know? And saying unfriendly things to all the passersby.
It needs to be said. It needs to be said.
That's right. So we have no money. We don't have AIPAC's money. We don't have the money of the military-industrial complex. All we have is the truth, and whatever moral energy and fortitude it takes to put the truth out, which is free. We give our time, and that's all we've got.
Well, thanks for giving your time. And you came up from Eugene, right?
Yes.
What's your website?
al-nakba-history.com, and that's Nakba, al-Nakba. Al-Nakba means the catastrophe in Arabic, and that is the term that's applied to their ethnic cleansing in 1948 by the Zionist forces. So the Nakba to the Palestinians is like the Holocaust to the Jews. And we want Nakba to be as familiar a word to the American public as the Holocaust.
Okay. I'll put your website on the video.
Okay.
Thanks for being out here. Good. Thank you.